Hi everyone. Today we'll talk about Herman Melville and his novel Moby Dick, which came out in the year 1851. Herman Melville was born on the 1st of August in 1819 in New York City. His ancestors included several Scottish and Dutch settlers of New York, as well as a number of prominent leaders in the American Revolution. By June 1846, Melville came up with his first novel, Typee. This novel is the reputed story of his life among the cannibalistic Typee people, and it is a highly fictionalized dramatization of the actual events as well. And Melville's second novel, Omu, published in the year 1847, details the adventures of another whaling journey in which Melville himself took part, and it resulted in a mutiny and landed in a jail. Later on, he escaped from the jail. In the summer of 1850, under the influence of Nathaniel Hawthorne's novel, The Scarlet Letter, Melville bought the Arrowhead Farm near Pittsfield so that he could live near Hawthorne, and the two men who shared similar philosophies became close. The relationship with Hawthorne reawakened Melville's creative energies, and in 1851, Melville published his most reputed novel, Moby Dick. And this novel, heralded as a landmark work now in American literature, had received little acclaim upon its release, in the early days. Moby Dick is the sixth novel by Herman Melville, which came out as a landmark in American literature that mixed a number of literary styles, including a fictional adventure story, historical detail, and even scientific discussion. The story of the voyage of whaling ship Pequod, the novel draws at least partially from the experiences of its author while a sailor and a harpooner on whaling ships before settling in New England as a writer. The title character of Moby Dick was inspired by an article in Knickerbocker magazine in May 1839 entitled Mocha Dick, or the White Whale of the Pacific. The first publication of Moby Dick was in London in 1851, entitled The Whale. The novel was published in 3 volumes and was censured for some of its political and moral content. The British publisher of the novel, Richard Bentley, inadvertently left out the epilogue to the novel, leading many critics to wonder how the tale could be told in first person by Ishmael, when the final chapter witnesses the sinking of the Pequod with presumably no survivors. The first American publication of the novel came the following month. The American version of the novel, published by Harper and Brothers, although fixing the narrative error of the British version through the inclusion of the epilogue, was poorly received by critics and readers, who expected a high romantic sea adventure story akin to Melville's first success novel, Omu and Typee. The reputation of the novel floundered for many years, and it was only after Melville's death that it became considered one of the major novels in American literature. Now let us have a quick look at the characters in the novel. Ishmael, the narrator and a junior member of the crew of Pequod. Even though Ishmael doesn't play a major role in the events of the novel, but the narrative is taken up by his eloquent verbose and extravagant discourse on whales and whaling. Another central character is, of course, Ahab. He is rather an egomaniacal captain of the Pequod. He had lost his leg to Moby Dick, and he is a single-minded person in his pursuit of the whale, using a mixture of charisma and terror to persuade his crew to join him. And as a captain, he is dictatorial, but not unfair. At moments, he shows a compassionate side, caring for the insane Pip and musing on his wife and child back in Nantucket. And Moby Dick, of course, the title character and the central character in the novel, the great white sperm whale. Moby Dick is also referred to as the white whale and is an infamous and dangerous threat to seamen, as considered by Ahab, and it is an incarnation of evil and a fated nemesis. And now other characters are Starbuck and Queequeg. Starbuck is the first mate of Pequod, whereas Queequeg is a skilled harpooner, and more important as he is Ishmael's best friend. And Queequeg is a character who is known to be a composite of elements of African, Polynesian, Islamic, Christian, and Native American cultures. And we see him as a brave and very generous person who enables Ishmael to see that race has no bearing on a man's character. Now Stubb is the second mate of Pequod. He is rather known to be as mischievous, good humor kind of person who is easygoing and very popular among his mates. And Teshuthigo is Stubb's harpooner. And then we have Flask, who is a native of Thisbury on Martha's Vineyard. Dagu, Pip, Bidlard are other seamen on the Pequod. Dagu, in fact, is Flask's harpooner. He is a physically enormous, huge man who's an African. Like Queequeg, he stowed away on a whaling ship that stopped near his home. And we have Pip, a young boy, in fact, who fills the role of a cabin boy or jester on the Pequod. Pip has a minimal role in the beginning of the narrative, but becomes important when he goes insane after being left to drift alone in the sea for some time. Like the fools in Shakespeare's plays, he is half idiot and half prophetic, often perceiving things that others don't. And following, we have characters like Fedella, Peeling, and Father Maple. Father Maple is a former whaleman and now the preacher in the New Bedford Whaleman's Chapel. He delivers a sermon on Jonah and the whale, in which he uses the Bible to address the whalemen's lives. He is learned but also experienced, and he is an example of someone whose trials have led him toward God rather than bitterness or revenge. Then we have Captain Boomer, Gabriel. And about Gabriel, he's a sailor aboard the Jeroboam, part of a Shaker sect. And Gabriel has prophesied that Moby Dick is the incarnation of the Shaker god, and that any attempts to harm him will result in disaster. And we see that his prophecies turn out to be correct in the course of the novel. So this is a brief note on the important characters in the novel. Now, major themes of the novel are limits of knowledge, and then fate and free will, nature and man, race, fellowship, enslavement, madness, and religion. And in the next session, we'll talk about the themes in the novel. Now let's have a quick look at the narrative technique employed by Herman Melville in the novel. Here the point of view is used as the narrative strategy, it's the key narrative strategy. And whose point of view is it? It is Ishmael's point of view, as Ishmael is the narrator, and the entire novel goes in first person narration. Now, the Hebrew name Ishmael can be translated as God hears or God understands. Hence, it's very fitting that a character named Ishmael should tell a story that can be interpreted in so many different ways from the perspective of so many different characters, and only God truly hears and truly understands the story. In addition, the biblical Ishmael was treated as a social outcast. In Genesis, after Sarah still had not given birth to any children, she granted Abraham permission to conceive a son with her maid Hagar, and that son was named Ishmael. So for now, we wind up here. In the next video, we'll meet with the themes of Moby Dick. Okay, till then, bye. Thank you.